in terms of the presentations, and Bernard is the one that will kick off with the economic outlook after I introduce. So maybe some time to see
Yes,
what
please
can happen.
do. I'm still working on trying to fix this, okay?
a balanced view and allow perspectives and opportunities in the market now and going forward to be X-rayed. To adapt to the current paradigm, the energy industry will need to dig deep and tap its proud history of bold structural moves, innovation, and safe and profitable operations in the toughest conditions. Great to have you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for dedicating your time with us. To our panel, thank you for participating, and we wish to have a fruitful conversation. So just letting you know about the structure of the event, we're going to provide an updated economic outlook, ongoing upstream projects, local content implications and opportunities, solutions offered, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. Just some housekeeping before we keep going. Your active participation is important through the session, so please be encouraged to address on the chat box available to you on your screen, and we will address those questions at the end. So without further ado, we will turn our time over to Bernardo to give us a context of the economic outlook. Bernardo, over to you. Please turn your camera on and let's let our guests hear from you, please. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Ernesto, and good afternoon, everyone attending the webinar. I would like first to thank all the panelists that have offered today to be part of this webinar. We have, as Ernesto mentioned, we have a list of very distinguished guests, and we're very proud to have them with us today. Before I start my very brief economic outlook, I would like to mention that we chose to go back to the energy theme because we'd like to signal that despite the headwinds that we had this year, we very much believe that this continues to be the best opportunity in Mozambique. And despite what we've seen in terms of delays and the force majeure and insurgency, there's an industry, an oil and gas industry in this country that has a very bright future. There are projects that are still happening. There are investments, very large investments for the size of the country still happening and within schedule. And therefore, we would like to continue to send a message that we believe that this is one of the key sectors for Mozambique. Although I think at the moment everybody's focused on very different things, right? The world and sub-Saharan Africa in particular are still dealing very much with the effects of the pandemic. Several waves of lockdowns, several waves of restrictions, several waves of the pandemic are impacting not only people's lives, but they're also impacting the way the companies operate. They are impacting the global supply chains, and that is affecting each economy in a different way. For example, last year in Mozambique, we had probably one of the best economic performances on the negative side, though, comparing to other even much larger economies. We had a decrease of 1.3 in the GDP, which was much better than some of our peers, and slightly better than sub-Saharan Africa, which had a minus 1.9% growth of GDP. When we look at this year, we're looking at somehow sub-Saharan Africa growing below the rest of the world, as we see the pandemic affecting us with some lag comparing with the other more developed economies, and basically also the vaccination programs being well ahead in some of these economies, where we're going to see a second half of more return to normality, while we're still probably in the middle of the biggest impact in terms of pandemic in sub-Saharan Africa. So we're looking at sub-Saharan Africa growing something around 3% in 2021, while the global economy, we expect it to grow around 6%. So still half, which is not what we used to do in terms of Sub-Saharan Africa. But this is the lag where last year the whole continent didn't decrease its economies as much as the developed world, and then it's getting it affected in 2021 rather than 2020. In the case of Mozambique, we have a compounded effect, of course, of what we're feeling in terms of the insurgency in the north, and I think the first half was particularly tough on the economy. In this sense, we expect that this first half will impact us more than the rest of the continent, and hence we're looking at Mozambique growing around 2% for the whole year for 2020-2021 against an average of about 3.2 of the overall continent, and this is really marked by the delays we had in the foreign direct investment related to the oil and gas for this year. It's also by the fact that the pandemic is affecting us much more, especially in June, since May, June, and July. So on the GDP front, then we do expect that 2022 marks a very different step into this growth. We're going back, should go back to growth levels around the 4%, and that's going to be boosted not only by the fact that we might have some decent percentage of the active population already vaccinated, so less effect on the economic activity. But also we expect large projects to come online, like the ENI Coral project, and large foreign direct investments that we foresee starting in 2022. Not only we have the Taman power gas project, we also have the investment that needs to be done on the Taman gas field to supply to that project, which we're also going to start in 2022. But in our base case, we also expect the Mozambique LNG project to restart the development phase in around 12 months. So our base case now foresees that we have a decrease in the insurgency over the next 6 months, and the early stages of the support from the international forces of SADC and the Rwanda are somehow, and we're all relying on very unconfirmed news, but I think the president's speech last week or the week before, sorry, gave us some good hints on what's happening in the north and the prospect. So we do expect over the next 6 months this insurgency to be somehow controlled, and once we get into a position where the joint forces are controlling the main points, we can then, I think we'll see whether the investors will give it a kind of a grace period, and I would imagine nothing less than 6 months of relatively controlled insurgency in the north for the investors to come back. So if we add these first 6 months of regaining control of the region and of the main cities in the Cabo Delgado region, and another 6 months where those are consolidated and the strongholds get pacified, then we should expect that the project could resume in around 12 months, so mid 2022. That also supports our forecast for 2022 of around 3.84% of GDP growth, and then when that happening in 2023, 2024, should go back to the high fives and even 6% of growth as expected. I'll just touch base quickly on the inflation and then on FX. I know that clients are and they know the two are very linked, and I know clients are always waiting for our forecasts on the FX. So inflation, what we saw after the very determined action from the central bank earlier this year, when we're having a spike in inflation, especially the food and beverages related inflation on the back of the depreciation of the Metico. We have not only the increase in interest rate, which has a much more longer impact, but also the initial increase of FX flows from the central bank. We saw the inflation again being controlled at around 5%. I think it is the third month in a row where inflation has been around 5.5. Our forecast for the year end is 5%. So we do expect this trend, despite the low devaluation of the Metico, should continue. The slow devaluation of it should be more. We do expect around 5% of inflation, and then the monetary policy has been quite tight, and going forward, I think 2022, 2023, being the main central bank guidance for monetary policy, we expect them to try and keep this around the 5-6%. And whenever it goes up, then you should see some actions on the monetary policy side. In this sense, interest rates should remain flat towards the end of the year as we consolidate this inflation around the 5%. And because we do expect some continuous devaluation of the metal, that's why we're expecting a maintenance of the current current interest rates. But there's also there might be room by towards the end of the year to again maybe lower a little bit, depending on how is the insurgency in the north, depending on how the global prices also, whether the supply chains are back functioning normally and they're not reflecting the cost of imports. So there are a number of factors that will affect the inflation. So assuming everything continues as is, we should keep a monetary policy flat. So interest rates flat towards 2021, so MIMO at 13.25. On the exchange rate side, again, if inflation is stable and the demand and supply has been relatively stable over the last months and a half, despite some of the issues that had on the financial system. The thing about demand and supply is that both demand and supply will come from multiple sources. Banks are just the conduits of those demand and supply. So whether we're 19 banks like we are today or 18 banks, the supply of dollars will be the same and the demand from dollars will be the same. It's just with the banks are just the conduits. So we didn't see any impact from the recent suspensions on the FX, and we should continue to see this slight depreciation, which there's realize a slightly imbalance, but not much between the metal and the dollar. And we're looking at finishing the year towards the 65. So pretty much in line with what we have today, and we're at 63.5. So this range should be something between 63.5 and 65, as we're seeing it quite balanced on a daily demand and supply. And the rest, I think I've overshoot my 10 minutes, but I just wanted to finish on this note on the FX. I'm happy to take some questions later, but setting the scene that for us, we still believe on the role that the oil and gas sector is going to play, and a lot of what I mentioned for the growth in 2022 and 2023 relies on this sector, and our prospects and focus thinks that this can be what provides us the uptick of growth comparing to some of the other countries in the region.
Thank you, Bernardo, for the insight. It's going to set the scene for the questions that we're going to address in our debate and discussion. So before going to greater depth, we will have 3 brief presentations from our panelists. I would like to begin with contributions from our national oil company, well represented by Monica. For our audience visibility, please provide information on the upstream operation to date. I will ask our organization to display the presentation for all to see. And Monica, as the floor is yours. And welcome.
Thank you, Ernesto, for this opportunity. And on behalf of Mr. VP, ENH, Exploration and Production, I will start my brief presentation related to the opportunity related to the existing gas resource and massification of consumption. Next slide, please. Well, as you know, ENH is representing the commercial hand of the government of Mozambique, and we participate on all the concessions related to the oil and gas production. And this is the resume about the shares that ENH holds from 10 to 25%. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of basin exploration, our main concentration is focused on the Mozambique basin. We are not saying that Rovuma is not our priority now, but despite all the scenarios that Mr. Aparicio reported previously, and we are now focused on Mozambique basin, where we focus on Pandi and Timani. blocks, which the operator is Sasol. And we have a POD approved in September 2020, which the FID was approved on February 2021, in a few months ago. These projects allow the ENH as a national oil company and the government representative to be part of this concession. And after this FID approved by the Mr. President, we will be having an initial production in 2023. The destination of these resources will be to generate power through the central thermica of Temani, which will be producing 30 million tons of LPG to be feed the domestic consumption. And a part of that, we will also producing 4,000 barrels of oil for exploration. Next slide, please. So this is the resume of the main uses of gas. And on my left side, we have the distribution channel, which supply gas to Maputo and Marakwene. We also have the project in north of Inhambane, which supply gas to Mamboni, Inhasoro, and Vilanculo. In Maputo, we have the distribution to vehicular gas, which supply the cars and the autobuses. We also supply the main consumption, which are the commercial industries. The next slide, please. Yes, this is the resume that we have related to the CTT project, which are our main goal for these upcoming years, where we will supply gas even for domestic, but also to generate power to the south part of Mozambique. With this project, we will be producing electricity for about 420 million megawatts of energy, and the CTT project, which is Temani Central Thermic, will be supply PSA gas to EDM, and also the program implementation of the new energy connection aligned with the government of Mozambique in order to commit with the 2020 SDG, which are the commitment to supply gas to Mozambicans in order to commit with the SDG 5. The project also will bring the human training capabilities in the job opportunities. We will now preparing the package of the training, on-job training for the local Mozambicans, and this training staff are coming from different parts of the world. They are Mozambican training in China, Russia, Malaysia, Portugal, and Angola. So with this project, we think that most of the Mozambican will be included in this project. So we will leverage the capacity of Mozambicans in this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. We will be addressing the capacity building and the human element. We're very much interested to know what has been done in terms of with more detail on the local contribution, not just business, but people themselves. I would like to once again reemphasize our viewers not to be shy and pose the questions on your chat box, and we will address those at the end. So proceeding, I would like to give floor to Sasol, represented by Mr. Antonio, with unquestionable expertise on the industry, on what he does, and on the contributions as an institution as well. to provide an overview of Sasol's local content plan and opportunities in the Pandit Temane, but not limited to. So, Mr. Antonio, thank you for allowing us your expertise on this matter, and please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Ernesto, and thank you very much to Absa. On behalf of Sasol and on behalf of my MD, we would like to thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to share our experience in the oil and gas sector. So we can quickly move to the next slide. So as everybody knows, Sasol has been in Mozambique in the last 2 decades and has invested about 3 billion USD in different areas of production and created a massive number of job opportunities. But the most important thing we would like to highlight is that Sasol positions sustainability in terms of local content as an integral part of its corporate strategy in the countries that operate. So to give that effect, Sasol has created the local content plan with the government of Mozambique that was signed off in December 19, and it aims to giving contribution to the transformation of local economy, and that commitment extends beyond compliance with Mozambican policies and legal requirements. We can move to the next slide, please. So, general objective and principle of strategic approach with the creation of the local content plan, the government and Sasol had their own strategic objective, and it was to increase local procurement spend, build capacity through enterprise supply development, participate in in-country research and development and technology transfer, invest in training of Mozambican national, and also employment of Mozambique national. But that was done through certain principles, and the principle of sustainability, collaboration, transparency, some pragmatism, and fit to purpose, and data-driven approach, and win-win solution between Sasol and the government, and this local content plan is also dynamic and flexible. To reach this strategic objective, the strategic approach was implemented where we put strong emphasis on supplier development, emphasis on transferable supply chain categories and suppliers skills development, expanding on innovative approach to contracting and procurement to drive local content, and we really focus on sustainable operation. As you all know that we can't rely on projects because they come and go, but with capital expenditure, we deal local content once we reach FID, and then also leverage existing initiatives with strategic partners in terms of research and development. Next slide. You can click on, okay. Yeah, you can keep on clicking. I'll talk to the high level pillars. So in our 5-year local content plan, we've got specific objectives. The one objective is really to build capacity throughout our micro, small, and medium enterprise. So we do invest in the capacity building. So there's also investment in human capital training to ensure that the human capital is prepared to the challenge that the industry brings.
We have some connection issues. Dr. Antonio, could you just please switch off your cell phone, perhaps, for optimization of the network?
Switch off my cell phone. I don't have my cell phone close by. Can you still hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Fumu, you continue.
Okay, sorry. So do I need to repeat this slide?
Yes, the line is fine.
Okay. So our 5-year local content plan has got specific objective. One objective is the capacity building of a micro, small, medium enterprise. And the second objective is the investment and human capital training. And the third objective is really to give support to SMEs in terms of financial capability. And our procurement adopted a preferential procurement to enhance local content. And the last pillar is about technology transfer. We can give more details on during our debate. Move to the next slide. Okay, this is an overview of SASA PPA license and PSA project. It's very, very busy slide, but it just summarizes that we do have a production area, and within the production area that is in Pandi, in Teman, there are certain projects on the PPA license and on the PSA license. On the PPA license, then we're going to produce more natural gas, and this gas will be exported, and also light oil that will also export. On the PSA license, we're going to drill some new wells, light oil wells and gas well, and the gas will need to supply and ensure there's enough supply to the CPT, which is central term of the money, and there is also the power transmission line there. And the other leg is going to be the production of the LPG, and this will be done on the integrated processing facility that will be built at the money as part of the PSA project. And the LPG production will be done from that new plant. So basically, this will supply the LPG will be supplied to the local market, and the light oil will go to the export line outside of Mozambique. So as an overview, these are the projects coming after the FID that will be granted by the government of Mozambique in February this current year. I think for now this is the summary that we would like to give. We are open to further discussion during the debate phase.
Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Thank you very much for your contribution. I can already see some excitement among our participants from what has been presented thus far. Given that local content is one of many ways in which the wider community can leverage on equitable development, I would like now to provide the floor to Absa through Pedro Carvalho, our head of retail and business banking of Absa, to provide view of the group's footprint in Africa and beyond, specific Absa's footprint in Mozambique. Pedro, please take the floor. What do we have in store?
Thank you, Ernesto, and good evening to all the participants on this webinar. I will just wrap up the two previous presentations, sharing some information and some data around Absa in the continent, and of course also here in Mozambique. So currently we are present in 10 African countries, mainly in the southeast part of the continent, with full-fledged banking subsidiaries in all these 10 countries. Maybe if we can move to the next slides, that will give us more information. We also have 2 rep offices in 2 other African countries, namely Nigeria and Namibia. And outside of the continent, we have offices both in the UK and the US that, of course, operate as a bridge into international investors that want to come to the continent, and also, of course, to allow us to link with our banking partners across the world. In the domestic front, if we can move to the next slide, please. We are present in all provinces, in the capitals of each province, as well as in sites that are relevant for our clients. We take a very flexible and pragmatic approach to the way we manage our branch network. And of course, we want to be in all places that are relevant to our clients, but only in those places. A very good example that I would like to share with all of you is, for example, the branch that we have in Lard at the Canmar compound, in which the branch is there specifically to serve Canmar, to serve their suppliers, to serve their staff. So the overall ecosystem that was built around that big project. So if the client needs us with the physical presence, we will be there to support the client and the whole value chain that is part of a specific project. Next slide, please. In Mozambique, as in most of the continent, we operate as a universal bank. So we serve, all segments from individuals to big corporates, and we have an offer of products and services that really covers the needs for all these different segments, being digital channels, savings products, lending products, transactional services. So we pretty much can be everything to everyone, although of course always with a huge focus on finding the right solutions to each client. However, there's something that we do, I would say quite different from the overall market, which is the coordinated and integrated way in which we operate. Of course, each client, is allocated to a specific segment, benefits from a relationship manager that is expert in that segment. But then behind the scenes, we have the capacity to really orchestrate an integrated approach that allow us to see each client not only as a separate entity, but also to map all these relations and understand in which ecosystems he is a player. And that adds a lot of value. So the moment we start handling a client, not as a single individual or a single entity, but we start handling him as part of a wider ecosystem, there are huge benefits for that client by banking with Absa on this very integrated and holistic approach. We know that sometimes a small piece of dust is enough to to make a sophisticated engine malfunction. And what we want to make sure is that we remove all that dust from any ecosystem, that we operate somehow as financial mechanics, if I can call it like that, and we make sure that each piece of these ecosystems really work to their best with our support, with the right level of solutions, of products, of services that each player needs to be an efficient piece of this engine, which is a big ecosystem. So Ernest, I will stop here, and I'm also very excited to hear the questions from our participants. So let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, presenters. You've all given a good setting of the scene for the topic we're addressing today, relating to the outlook and our competencies to address the opportunities and aid the market with our products. I would like to start this interactive session with Mr. MJ Ayub, who's the Executive Chairman of Africa Energy Chamber. Thank you for accepting this invitation. And without further ado, I would like to start with one question. So the global response to climate change poses a change in investment appetite potentially for fossil fuel projects. So where does Mozambique's gas profile and associated emissions fit in the agenda? Are there threats, opportunities on that front?
Thank you so much, Ernesto, for having me. It's always an honor to join people who are very smart than I am. So you pick the guy who is not so smart to be here. So I'm honored. And I think Mozambique poses one of the greatest opportunities in the energy sector right now. It's the hottest property, but we got to close that gap between struggle and success. With the global climate, and as you've heard from the previous presentations, it is no doubt investment is going to be tight into energy projects. It's not just an issue of saying, let's raise the enabling environment and create more opportunity for investors in Mozambique, but the climate moving towards energy transition is a problem. But yes, where I think we are missing the point, and we are not really making that story, and Mozambique needs to drive that story. And I think Absa needs to drive the story, or the financial community, and all of us that care about oil and natural gas need to drive that story. Mozambique LNG, technologically, is what you would call a low carbon LNG. What does that mean? It doesn't emit the same kind of carbon emissions as you would have from LNG coming either from Qatar or from Russia or from the United States. So you're seeing one of the purest forms of gas, something that you've never seen in the world. That makes it even more attractive. So it's actually helpful to the environment and makes us more environmentally responsive with that. But I think we have to also think bigger than that. What would gas mean? We have to tell a story and build a stronger narrative what gas would mean to a country like Mozambique. We at the Chamber were really concerned about issues around energy poverty. And that is something that in this day, at this time, we must make it the cause of our life to defeat energy poverty. Because as you see with the energy transition, you are not going, if you say by 2030, you have to have 65% of the cars on electric vehicles. I don't think anybody, I don't think I'll be exaggerating when I was saying that you will not be able to have every Mozambican driving a Tesla in 2030 if they cannot power it with the right kind of electricity. So I still think there is a case for investment to be made in Mozambique, but we all have an obligation to drive that case and put Mozambique's story. But energy transition is real, but we have to make a case that Mozambique still needs to exploit its oil and natural gas resources to really drive its future and meet its own development. Because heck, Mozambique did not cause the climate problem. And there's no reason why Mozambique should be punished at this time by international powers, but we just need to work it in so that the financial houses would understand and continue funding these key projects that the country needs at this moment.
Thank you, NJ. Thank you, NJ, very much. I'll just double click on that. Are renewables complementary or disruptive to our fossil fuel developments in Mozambique? And what do you see as being the realistic prospects for Mozambique's energy potential in a limiting carbon emissions global trend? Do provinces such as ours, when I mean such as ours, with our profile, right, in terms of the development challenges, you know, we have a high absorption rate. It's, I mean, there's so much investment yet that needs to be applied here, and infrastructure development to support that same journey. Do we bear the same responsibility? Is it something that needs to be refined towards policy that would give us some headroom to catch up?
That's a heavy loaded question, but we need to first start with renewables. Renewables are not bad. They are very expensive, but they're not bad. You need to have a national policy and also an investment policy on renewables. If the idea of renewables is going to be made in China, made in Europe, made in made in America, and Mozambique is just going to be consumers of renewables with nothing being made in Mozambique, then you've just taken out a big portion of the industry and the market, and you've thrown out your power needs. It's going to be no value added proposition to Mozambique. Renewable could be part of the energy mix, and it should be. But how are you going to finance it? How are you going to fund it? If you're going to have more money coming from development institutions and big ticket items, it should go down with using banks like yours to say, how do you get Mozambican companies or companies with Mozambican content and partnership to really drive it and build manufacturing and everything? I'll give you an example. Look at the cell phone boom around Africa. When the cell phone started, everybody said, well, it's just not going to work in Africa. They wouldn't have it. But you know, whether you're in Pemba or you in Maputo, you would find, or in Berea, you would find somebody with 2 cell phones and he's paying data. How did that happen? But we also lost on the manufacturing of cell phones. We also lost on that. So we cannot turn that big component of the business outside Mozambique and outside and not empowering that. But the key part of this, whether it is with renewables, is how are you going to finance it? And that is critical. Right now, the cheapest it would be fossil fuels, maybe gas to power, maybe working with ENH to look at other integrated programs on how you're going to drive it. But upon the policy side, we have to also keep an eye on the policy side, because a free and structured market is good. But what happens more is an enabling environment to make sure that every young child can get up, have a dream, and say, I'm going to get out there to work hard. I'm going to get out there to build my business, and we'll build and we'll grow. And yes, you will be able to build a profile that will come to financial institutions and say, my project is bankable, take a chance on me, work with me so I can make a lot of money. I'm a capitalist. A lot of people want to make money. But also, I'm going to be able to develop my country, create jobs, pay taxes, and then make it better so that other young people could look at me and say, if he can make it, I can make it. I came from, nowhere to somewhere, and I'm going up. So what people thought was going to be a disaster, right now it's a bonanza. And we need those stories right now in Mozambique and around Africa. We need that. And if you could do that with renewables, coupled together with fossil fuels, coupled together with gas, that's it. Your gas is just going to give you massive income for you to use and transform and close the infrastructure gap and really drive up. Let's not miss that opportunity. The time is now.
Thank you, NJ. NJ, thank you very much for that. So I see there's an element of risk sharing that needs to be approached and contextualized to our necessities if we are to leverage our growth. And as a bank, we are here to make sure that that happens in all phases of development. So I'll just like to bring Bernardo back from the economic outlook in Mozambique. Bernardo, there's no shortage, as you rightfully addressed, of macro, geopolitical, and considerations on the horizon. What should investors be watching for in the coming years? If you could just briefly summarize what you described, but what would be the main points that investors should be approaching at the moment and considering? You have the floor, Bernardo.
And I think for an investor, it's always about the macroeconomic stability combined with the political stability. I think Mozambique has demonstrated for a long time that it has adopted the right macroeconomic policies to keep this stability. We've seen over the last 5-6 years a very active central bank and a very disciplined Ministry of Finance, which have learned a lot with the debt crisis that we had in 2015, 2016. And this, I think, is something that the investors will appreciate, that we have learned a lesson, and that this is something that we should continue to expect over the years, that this is such a key. The drop that we had in foreign direct investment after the debt crisis was such a wake-up call that every person that will probably sit in the governor's chair or in the Ministry of Finance chair will have that very, very clear, that we need to keep this macroeconomic stability in order to continue to attract investors. But then it also depends on which sectors the investors are in, right? Investors in the energy sector, they are used to some instability, sometimes a little bit of political instability, sometimes even a little bit of social instability in some of the countries. What they need to have is also some legal stability, and that is another thing that Mozambique has proven in the past. The legal stability on the contracts has been quite strong. So both on the mining sector and on the oil and gas sector and natural resources sector, we've had a number of foreign investors that have had contracts for many years with the Mozambican, and we haven't had changes in law. So another thing that is quite a strong investment case for Mozambique is the fact that legally it's been very stable in how they respect contracts. And Sazol is on the call. They've had a concession agreement for the oil and gas sector for 15 years now, I think, and they've been able to negotiate, renegotiate, agree. I think ENH is also on the call. They take a big role in helping taking the right decisions from a government perspective. So I think the two main things that we should expect is macroeconomic stability and legal stability. We hope that the recent events will also increase the awareness that the political stability is also very important. And if we get these three pillars, the political, the legal, and the macroeconomic stability, then we can become again one of the bright stars of foreign direct investment in the continent.
Nailed it. I'll just go back now to the security situation and the players that we have around. I'll address this question to Hermano and NJ, who will be Hermano first to address. So how important is participation of integrated majors in the country? I'm referring to companies with operations spanning the value chain, from exploration to marketing and retail. with strong balance sheets to bring comfort to the to investment in the country. So, Hermano.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Ernesto, and thank you everyone who has joined us for this webinar. Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and also thanks for breaking down the definitions. So basically, I would say that it's in a nutshell very important and very good for the economy. You see, because the way Mozambique is going in the direction it has been going over the last 2 decades, I think it's a pretty exciting direction. Why do I say that? You know, historically, you know, Mozambique for quite a long time has been out of the position. Has had mostly an upstream operation here in Mozambique. So by upstream, I'm referring to Sasol, who for over a decade has had a concession agreement with the government for some time. And on the other hand, you do see a lot of downstream operations. So I guess you know, despite the setback that did happen, you know, earlier this year with the security situation, you know, Mozambique, well, obviously, in the greater scheme of things, that's pretty much a short-term setback, and eventually, you know, we'll get back on our feet and go in a good direction again. We're going in an exciting direction in the sense that, you know, almost for the first time, and especially being a third world emerging economy such as ours, where we're having, you know, companies that do see Mozambique as fertile ground to have, you know, integrated operations. So, for example, if you look at the corporate company, which is the, you know, Area 1 operator, for a couple of decades, they have had, you know, quite massive downstream investments here in Mozambique, and eventually we saw them, you know, investing in a very game-changing upstream operation. And at the same time, we do see this same player that I will break down further on during the discussion in the webinar, also making quite a massive midstream investment here in the economy. And obviously, you know, we do foresee that in the medium term, there will be remediations that will result in resumption of the upstream operation. And you know, for the first time, we're going to have, you know, one major with a fully integrated operation. And you know, it's actually quite exciting to have, you know, Sasol on the panel, because this is another example of one of the first exciting examples of an upstream operation where the majority of the consumption is going to be within the country, and that is the Nyasoto expansion, which is the PSA project for Sasol, where we see, you know, for the first time an upstream operation where the rationale behind the investment is majority of the consumption happening here, which is, you know, the IPP project that has been, you know, one of the highlights of the economy, and it's one of the first examples where we see a major investment, a major FID, close to $1 billion being made, where only the excess resources that are produced are going to an off-taker outside of Mozambique. So in a nutshell, I would say that you know, those are very that's a very exciting milestone for the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Hermano. Jay, you're next, please. What is your contribution? What do you see that in terms of like the regional experience that other provinces like us have had in terms of having an integrated operator in the country, integrated major? How can we benefit on that? In terms of risk sharing, you were talking about earlier as well. How do we benefit in terms of stability?
I think it does benefit a lot in terms of stability, and you got to, first thing you got to look at two things. You are getting, you're going to see a lot more with the climate moving left and shifting left or right. And if you look left or right from Mozambique, you got to play regional. And if you're going to do a regional play, being able to move gas, whether it is into South Africa, whether it is around SADC, is going to be a major and amazing play for Mozambique and for everybody that is looking at this market. But the second aspect of this as well, which you have to also look at, it is that oil companies are not just becoming going to continue being oil companies or petroleum companies. They are becoming energy companies. So that integrated nature becomes part and parcel of what they do. So you're going to see them working as these energy companies where, because of the advancement in technology, they're going to still be able to drive a lot of gas to power projects, a lot of other things that you start seeing people seeing oil companies not just as some big upstream players, but also as a midstream players who are developing communities and building something. And I think when we look at what's going to happen regionally, I'm excited about the ideas which I've been talking to a lot of people in the industry, they're seeing LNG to Africa, LNG regionally, and moving that. And I just think that's where you're going to see a strong push going there. But also, you also got to look at sometimes what we are quick to ignore. Put some skin in the game. Be more decisive and really work on that domestic gas play. Because that domestic gas play in Mozambique, for example, is going to drive so much to really lift people up from poverty into working class and into middle class. Why do I say that? You're going to see more, you will see more energy companies more willing to build more on the successes. And I'll give you an example. Let's take, for example, petrochemicals. There's no reason why we should not be looking at that integrated play where you could build a petrochemical complex where you use a small scope of gas and you do urea, ammonia, NPK, fertilizer plants, and really boost up agriculture, boost up gas to power next to the area, but drive up a lot of more that you need to do. And in this climate right now, it is cleaner, it is friendlier, and it is bankable, and it is fundable. And that is something that we could really look at. And then you could really just inject the regional markets with fertilizer out of Mozambique. You could inject the regional markets with a lot more stuff. So there is a lot more exciting things to happen if we start incentivizing that kind of growth, that kind of integrated place, but fast tracking it as well. But do not forget a local component on how you carry either state, national companies like ENH along, or private local companies that have the money or the partnership to get there. Mozambique can do it. The fundamentals are very, very strong, and the bankability makes sense to really drive integrated energy projects around the region. And it also touches onto the security issues where you can then start addressing security issues, not just with bullets, but with jobs, but with building up a better environment, which young people would have more hope in a job, in them contributing to community, and we don't lose them and get to a point where we have to try to use forces to get them back in order for them to be good citizens again. We need to capture them with opportunity and with hope.
Thank you, NJ, and thank you, Hermano. I'll just go back to the local content activity, and Sazol being a prime example of a success story, I would say. I would like to address this question to Mr. Antonio and Mr. Benson, who's here with us. There are large number of unparalleled changes across the sector at the moment. And as your presentation showed, Mr. Antonio, there are simultaneous issues, or I would say milestones that need to be addressed. At a time where the world is being hit with a more transmissible COVID-19 variant, questions arise on where focus should be on. Everything related to COVID-19 as high uncertainty, as we are already still in the middle of the pandemic. So on this backdrop, what has been the role of innovation in the sector amidst the challenges associated with mobility and supply chain disruptions? How have Mozambican players adapted to these challenges? So, Mr. Antonio?
Thank you very much. That's a very relevant question, and I can give you an example in our capacity building program. So when we initiated a year ago, we were doing face-to-face training, but then we had to sit back and rethink, considering the current reality where you do not want to train people and then multiply the disease throughout the country because you are engaging face-to-face. Then we had to find a solution where we now delivering online training to our small micro in a medium in enterprise. And it is working well. It's a program that we will continue until such time that the time will tell us or whether we should go back to the first to first trade. As part of that as well, you have to be innovative and changing your procurement tactics and review scopes and unbundling scopes to ensure that there's more participation of the local markets. This is what kind of things that we are doing, unbundling scopes and setting aside some scopes to the local market to ensure there's more participation into the local content business. But yes, there is a challenge, and the challenge is the small, mediums, and micro enterprise in terms of capabilities in the industry, and that we cannot blame them. The industry is new in Mozambique to all of us. I think that's why Sasol focus is really to invest in the capacity of that sector to ensure that over time this situation will be reduced. So when we talk about local content, we cannot think about spending alone. We also need to think about the human capital. It's very crucial that we have capable workforce that can respond to the requirements of the oil and gas industry. And to give you an example, Sasol currently is 98% operated by full workforce Mozambican. All the management staff is Mozambican. I think we only have one or two expatriates at the moment, and they will soon go because we are doing our skills transfer to local staff as a continuous base to ensure that the future stays in Mozambique to give sustainability to the business. So the workforce is very much important to be trained to respond to this. And we've got people trained outside Mozambique, in Malaysia. We've got people that are trained in Mozambique within different areas of Sasol doing on-job training. We do internships. We do have our vocational training center in Inyasor that train people on how to do things, which is very important to the industry area as well, to the know-how. It's very important. You don't want doctors and engineers only, but you need a lot of people that they have got the know-how to respond to the market, and also to be more qualified in terms of job opportunity. So I think that's what we're doing. For those that are coming out from our training center in Nyasor, we even supplied them with a startup kit to ensure that they start their own jobs and they can employ other people. And with that multiplier effect, then we can have more people working, we can have more people owning business, and they will grow over time. As part of that as well, we understand that there are some challenges in terms of finance capabilities to our micro, small enterprise, and we created a development fund through a partnership with BCI, and this aims to support them in terms of investment for medium and long term for capital investment, and also to discount invoice in case a supplier has got a project that is ongoing, job has been done, but is still waiting for the 60 or 90 days to be paid. So he can come to our credit line and get a finance support and cash that invoice, proceed with its business, and when time comes for him to be paid, then he will pay back money to the credit line to allow other people to also access to the finance. So those are the contribution that Sasol is doing, is taking the lead, considering that it's been in the market for long. So we're using the learnings that we've had from the last 2 decades to really improve our local content performance within the Mozambique landscape.
Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Turning to you, Benson, we touched bases on terms of the innovation aspect. I would like to know, and the audience would like to know, from a bank perspective and Absa, what role have we played, and what do you see as being a supportive role that we can have on capacitating our business, local firms in the value chain?
Thank you, Ernesto. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for having me here. I would like to start my answer by touching a little bit on the lessons learned. I believe throughout the pandemic, Mozambique and the whole wide world had a chance to actually go through a couple of episodes that drastically changed the way we did business. First, obviously, the huge investment that was done on the technology area, because a lot of people were working from home instead of the offices, and also that affected the logistics part, especially with recent episodes of the blockage of the Suez Canal, which obviously impacted some of the deliveries to the African continent and specifically here in Mozambique. But I guess the SME landscape was quick to adapt, and I hope this continues to be the practice, because obviously with the continuation on the exploration on the northern side of the country, a lot of demand is going to come for the the local SME landscape, and obviously the need of capacitated and well-trained and ready to deliver companies is going to increase. So from a banking perspective, we have been doing quite a lot, not enough, but there is still a lot of room to improve. Specifically tackling the risk management topic, because we all know that Mozambique has a peculiar issue, if I may call, with risk management when we talk about the SME landscape, and obviously there's a lot of work that can be done to actually support the companies. Hence our various partnerships with significant corporations that help us on the journey of capacitating the SME landscape towards serving the bigger anchor clients. We all know that there are several projects in country. One of them, and the significant one, is the Sasol project, whereby Mr. Fumu went through, and just by the sizable opportunities that derive from those type of projects, obviously the demand for finance increases each day. So coupling our knowledge around risk management together with some exceptions that are being opened in the market around how do we actually assess this risk, opens a wider door to actually support more and more companies. We have our own enterprise and supply development division, which I'm one of the people who looks after it. Obviously, we support a lot of oil and gas companies, and we are growing our portfolio more and more, whereby we go beyond financial support, and we cover also capacitation. So there is a lot that can be done, and obviously I believe in partnering with companies and entities that have a lot of experience. It's going to aid us, not only the banks, but also the rest of the SME landscape to actually achieve more and better results. Thanks.
Thank you both. I will turn back to double click on the ecosystem element to Pedro, but before that, I would like to turn to Monica. We're talking about some insight on human element of the industry. And we are aware that technology and capacity building is publicly addressed to be one of ENH's priorities. with the goal of ENH to increase the Mozambicans in the oil and gas industry as human resources. What has been done thus far? Could you just give us an update of what the role has been?
Technology is a very concern to us, and through government partner and through fund agencies, we be able to acquire some software, IT infrastructure, to be able to compete at the same level with the other companies. We also having training programs which are supported by our EOC's partner and the training abroad external training companies that give us the training softwares, so then we can be able to training our staff. Within our partnership, within all the consortium of oil and gas, we have the opportunity to see all the overall resources that are in the blocks. So with this software financed by NORAD, Africa Development Bank, we are able to interpret and investigate what are the resources of our country. So this is our approach in terms of technical and technology. And from that, we will be able to discuss at the same level with the company in order to see what are the main resources existing in our subsurface.
Thank you, Monica. I'll come back to double click on that, on your exploration activities that you mentioned previously. Now I would like to bring Pedro back. In the view of Absa being an ever evolving player in the ecosystem banking across the continent and beyond, as you rightfully addressed, in the ambit of a one firm view, how are Absa's competencies fit for Mozambique's business, and has our footprint come to aid? Pedro, unfortunately, we cannot hear you yet. Might be on mute. I'll come back to you.
Okay, I think you can hear me now.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good, thank you. Look, it's funny that you characterize Absa as a ever-evolving player in ecosystem banking, and that's absolutely true. To efficiently be the financial partner of an ecosystem is not something with the beginning and an end, right? So an ecosystem it's a living thing, right? It's a living animal, we can call it like that. It will grow, it will develop. It will transform along the way. In some cases, it will split into multiple smaller ecosystems, and at some point, most of the cases will come to an end. This living thing, this living forces the bank not only to be very close to the ecosystem, but also to constantly innovate, to ensure that we are able to provide for the evolving needs of the ecosystem or the project, right? So for us to be a relevant and effective player in any ecosystem, in any project, we need to constantly evolve as the project evolves, right? We need to make sure that we are there to support all the players at each phase of the project. And as we know, depending on the characteristics of the project, the starting moment, the mature moment, and the end moment can be very, very different. Of course, our footprint, both international and local, it's very critical to support the whole ecosystem. an ecosystem is not necessarily confined to, the borders of a country or of a province or of a village, right? Usually there are almost global ramifications, and we as Absa, we need to make sure that by being present or by having the right partnerships in each of the relevant locations for each ecosystem, we provide all the necessary support. That's absolutely critical, right? So if we don't have the power, the capabilities, to support any type of participants in the ecosystem, being them, expat staff, local suppliers, foreign suppliers, we need to be there to support all of them. And that's what we try to do every day. We try to adjust our offering, our products and services to the needs and to the evolving needs of each of the ecosystems that we are part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you very much for that insight. So I would like to address Hermano now. We are aware of the promising projects in the pipeline whereby Absa is taking a predominant role in assisting, both in intelligence and in financial support. Any initiatives that you would like to share here that would be representative of that effort?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, Ernesto. So I must say that there are a couple, but I think I'll expand more on the one that should be happening in the nearer term. So we have actually done public events where we discussed extensively our role in the value chain on major upstream projects, especially in the Rovuma Basin, as well as Sasol. And one of the big key ones that we do have on the radar, I'm pretty sure that most of the audience may be aware of the LNG terminal here in the southern side of Mozambique. So that's pretty much a joint venture between one of the major midstream players in the market, one of the major gas distributors, as well as Total, who's obviously also playing a very big role in the upstream side of things, as well as the downstream side of things in the economy, where pretty much most of the gas will be imported and distributed to the off-takers. So in terms of a role in support, as it has been with other major projects, be it in the upstream sector as well as in the power sector, our role is pretty much across the value chain. And I must say that one peculiar thing about us that we're pretty proud of as an organization is our success rates as the best bank in terms of supporting the value chain. So when I say supporting the value chain, I don't only mean financially in terms of the financial needs across the value chain, but also the non-financial solutions, business development initiatives. Benson did highlight the Enterprise Development Center that we do partner with. That's pretty much owned by the Area 4 Rovuma LNG operators, but it does benefit capital
I don't think that we need to relent on local content. It is going to be a key fundamental in whether you are going to succeed or you're going to fail, because you have a population that is going to be demanding more and more. So what if you do this? You look at the skills which you're bringing in a lot of Filipinos to do it, or lowly skilled are people, and then you go into vocational training. You don't have to have everybody trying to be a petroleum engineer. You don't have to have everybody trying to be a geologist or long-term, but some of the journeymen in Mozambicans can do it. Some of the work in the like pipe fitters and line, and some of the line managers can be done by Mozambicans. There's just a lot of skills there that could be reprogrammed and retrained to get that and get going. But also you got to look at the business side. You got to start pushing for the right kind of joint ventures. And I really warn about these joint ventures. It's that we have to move away from commission agents. The biggest danger we could do is saying, oh, we've achieved 30% local capacity. But then what does that mean? We just have a lot of glorified or well-connected middlemen who then at the end of the day, we're not really building entrepreneurs and driving the real kind of people that are going to create jobs and create opportunity for an economy that needs it and hire more people, because you're not going to expect Exxon or Total or ENI or Sasol to do that. The local companies have to do it. So if you just focus on getting commission agents and local middlemen, they would take that money tomorrow and fly to Paris or London or Portugal and do amazing things and party hard. But we need to really get these entrepreneurs and these middle part players. There's a lot of carpenters already in Mozambique who are doing well. Give them opportunity. There's a lot of bricklayers and welders and all of these kind of skills. Just improve them and drive them so that they can take the opportunities that are there and build from there and drive real companies, because we need more entrepreneurs and less middlemen. Let's go pick those people who are not so connected and help us build a middle class that will give us the Mozambique and the oil industry that we deserve. And I hope that the bank backs them up with some financing and really close some of the risk issues so that they can also be able to get it. Because sometimes some of the skillful guys don't really have the paperwork and don't really have anything. That is where we need to invest more to tell you, let's get your T's and C's ready. Let's get your due diligence documents ready so that you can be able to be contractable by the operators. It's not just having the skills, but your skills have to be contractable by the operators, and your skills have to also be financeable by the banks so that you can bring more people in and have Mozambican entrepreneurs driving this.
Thank you for that contribution, NJ. I would actually double tap on the financial aspect of it. I would address this to Bernardo and Pedro. What has been the role of the bank in supporting local participation in greenfields with several infrastructural needs and in an environment where liquidity has been scarce? How have you supported this, and how are you contributing to stability in participation?
Ernesto, I think very interesting question. I think the word greenfield is also always a word that gets the risk, the credit risk deciders or sanctioners a little bit nervous. So it really has to be a balanced approach around on how much greenfield it is, right? So there's several approaches into that. The elements around financing greenfield projects is all about the market. When you're taking something new to the market, the element of risk, a big element of risk is there. So any mitigation that you can add into the market side, into the revenue side in these greenfield projects is key. So the whole structure really relies on having secured contracts that allow you to anchor an amount of cash flow that will then be able to repay the investment that you've made. So I think we're going into a space of the definition of when you go into a greenfield with a lot of markets, risk is one thing. When you go into greenfield projects, which are anchored on strong contractual basis, from concession agreements to offtake agreements to supply agreements, then you go into a much more financing space than when you have all the demand side and the market side open. So really the key for the banks to be able to support greenfield projects is really around securing the market for the product or the service that you're providing. And then on top of that, it's much easier for us to discount the cash flows and support the initial investment that is needed for this greenfield project. So I think it's all about the contractual structure around these projects.
Thank you, Pedro. What is your view on that?
So Ernest, I won't repeat what Bernard just said, but you mentioned, the crisis that we are trying to get out of, and of course, although the global financial system was highly impacted by the COVID pandemic, we have seen banks, bouncing back quite quickly, restructuring a significant part of their balance sheet, and in some cases even reinforcing their capital base. So I'm sure that we won't see any constraints from a liquidity perspective. Of course, there are the risk issues that Bernard already mentioned, but I don't expect liquidity to be a constraint in any way, both in local currency or in foreign markets. I'm sure that working together with the promoters of the project, we will find always the necessary liquidity to make these projects move forward.
Thank you, Pedro. I would like to bring in Benson also with his insight in the value chain. Benson, with all these challenges, and not just challenges, with opportunities and optimistic view that we've covered here, which segments do you see that would be best performing in the short term, medium term? It's one question that a lot of our participants are posing.
Thanks, Ernest, and I also agree that that's actually a very good question. I think by this stage in time, there is no much need to dissect the whole value chain on the energy space, but it's judging by the Mozambican SME landscape, it's quite obvious that there are distinct sectors or segments that might benefit rapidly with a big boost or the coming back of several projects that has stopped, namely the procurement, logistics, consumer and services are going to be one of the most distinct sectors or segments that will quickly benefit from the ramping up of these projects, and obviously the local content space is going to actually get some from it. But we cannot actually forget some of the lessons from the past that really need to be addressed. And I'm sure that all have heard several participants touching some of these key issues which rhyme with the risk management capacitation and the ability to adapt. Because during these previous 2 years, we have witnessed the market changing from A to Z. First with the pandemic, and then with the logistics, deliveries, and many other things are going to happen. So the ability to adapt is very crucial if any company wants to stay afloat during these crucial periods. Therefore, us as a bank also play a key role on that, guiding the companies that actually bank with us and also the prospect ones throughout this ever-changing journey whereby with our different programs and products, we tend to support the economy, not only the local content, but also the huge vast array of companies that are part of this, and with this a very big heart to the women and youth part of the sector that also needs a little bit of attention if we want to have a more diverse landscape. So I will actually stop right here and over to you, Ernesto. Thank you.
Thank you, Benson. And I would like to thank all the participants and attendees for this session. I was just viewing the questions that have been posed to us, and we did a great job in terms of covering most of them. I'll just leave the remaining ones for the essence of time. We are not late because we started 10 minutes, I would say, postponed. We're preparing for a quality debate. I would like to ask the first question that was addressed to Monica. Monica, one of our participants asked, Monica, when will we start using gas from Temani for domestic purpose in Maputo City? Sorry, Monica, you are on mute.
Thank you for the question, estimated plenary. We actually already started using the gas, supplying Maputo, Marakwene, Matola, and now with the pilot project to Aeroportos. This project started, if I'm not wrong, in 2004. So the first gas was delivered to the industrial consumption. So we have significant numbers of consumption clients that are now gas within all the country. Actually, we are now making expansion process for Marakwene. This is the ongoing process, and the demand is huge, as the price of gas is a little bit higher when we compare to the bottles LPG. But as we presented at the first stage, the project of PSA will be producing 13 meters ton of gas, LPG. So we think that we will massificate the consumption of the gas in country. This is our goal of the government. This is our main goal also as a national oil company.
Thank you, Monica. The next question I would put our head of oil and gas to answer. They ask, what is the percentage of gas that will be domestically used, and consequently, what is for export?
Sure, thanks, Ernesto. So as mentioned earlier, the exciting thing about the project that we do see driven by Sasol is that the economics of the PSA expansion is mostly domestic consumption of that. So just to be a bit succinct, I would say that about looking at what's forecast, about 70% will be used locally, and will be used mostly for the CTC, which is the 420 megawatt power plant, while the excess of that is expected to be exported. So we're talking 546 billion cubic feet during the life of the project being consumed locally versus about 292 that will be exported, mostly to one of the key parent companies that are based in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Hermano. Thank you all. I would just want to wrap up by saying thank you all attendees and our panelists for dedicating this time with us and for sharing so much insight and bringing clarity to not just myself, but to the wider audience that lacked some understanding and granularity of what's going on in the market and what the opportunities and future looks like. Time has been short, And we look forward to our next engagement. Until then, please do keep safe and motivated. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and bye-bye.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.